President Donald Trump said earlier this week he would impose a 200% tariff on the company if it moves production to Mexico.
Donald Trump said earlier this week he would impose a 200% tariff on the company if it moves production to Mexico. The $124 billion company is under fire. Donald Trump just declared economic war on them. Trump is threatening a 200% tariff on John Deere products, a move that could shake American farming to its core. This isn't just politics. Jobs, food prices, and entire communities hang in the balance as the battle begins. Why is John Deere moving production to Mexico? How will farmers survive skyrocketing equipment costs? And is this the start of a trade war that will hit your wallet? Stick with us. What happens next might shock you. What's happening? What most people don't realize is that one threat can shake an entire industry. Donald Trump has never been shy about making headlines, but this time, his target is not a foreign competitor. It's John Deere, a $124 billion cornerstone of American agriculture. During a heated campaign rally in Pennsylvania, Trump issued a bold ultimatum. If John Deere proceeds with his plan to relocate the production of skid steers and compact loaders to Ramos Arizpe, Mexico, the company will face a 200% tariff on its imports to the US. This announcement didn't just stir up chatter, it sent shockwaves across the political and economic landscape. Trump's message was clear. Jobs tied to American manufacturing should stay in America. In a fiery speech, he framed his stance as a fight for the American worker, calling out companies that prioritize cost-cutting over loyalty to their domestic workforce. The crowd roared in approval, but the implications of this move extended well beyond campaign rhetoric. The fallout began almost immediately. Financial analysts started calculating how the tariff might affect John Deere's bottom line. With a 200% tariff, the company's products could become prohibitively expensive in the US market, forcing them to either abandon their relocation plans or risk losing a significant portion of their customer. This move sends a clear message to companies and investors worldwide. America is fighting back against outsourcing. But what led John Deere to take such a drastic step in the first place? John Deere's dilemma. Imagine being caught between two impossible choices: profits or patriotism. For John Deere, the decision to move production to Mexico was not made lightly. The company has long been a symbol of American ingenuity. Its green and yellow machines dotting farms across the heartland, led workers maintaining competitive prices, while covering these costs has become an uphill battle. On top of that, global competitors in countries with lower labor expenses, like China and Brazil, are producing agricultural equipment at a fraction of the cost to stay relevant in a fiercely competitive global market. Deere's leadership felt compelled to relocate certain operations to Mexico, where production costs are significantly lower. This isn't just about cutting costs. Deere is also trying to streamline its supply chain. By moving closer to key international markets, the company hopes to reduce shipping times and gain an edge in regions where demand for agricultural equipment is growing rapidly. However, this business strategy clashes head-on with the political climate in the United States. To Trump and his supporters, it looks like another example of a corporation abandoning its patriotic duty in favor of foreign interests. This reveals how deeply global economics affect even the most American of companies. But this decision comes with consequences that go far beyond corporate profits. Fallout in Dubuque, Iowa. What happens when an entire community suddenly loses its economic anchor? In Dubuque, Iowa, John Deere's announcement was met with shock and fear. The factory slated to lose production jobs has been a cornerstone of the local economy for decades. For many families, working at John Deere isn't just a job, it's a generational legacy. Fathers and mothers have watched their children follow in their footsteps, building careers and lives around the factory's steady employment. But now, that stability is under threat. Workers are uncertain about their futures, wondering whether they'll be transferred to other roles within the company or face layoffs. Small businesses that rely on the factory's workers as customers are bracing for a decline in revenue. Restaurants, stores, and service providers are already seeing a drop in foot traffic as anxiety ripples through the community. The psychological toll is also significant. Many employees feel betrayed by a company they believed was deeply committed to their hometown. Local leaders have scrambled to provide support, but resources are limited. Some residents have begun lobbying state representatives to intervene and persuade John Deere to reconsider the move. This shows how fragile local economies can be in the face of global corporate decisions. But this is only the beginning of a much larger problem: the American manufacturing exodus. Here's where it gets really interesting. John Deere isn't the first and won't be the last to consider moving abroad. John Deere's decision reflects a broader trend that has been reshaping American manufacturing for decades. Companies across various industries have increasingly moved operations to countries with cheaper labor, lower taxes, and fewer regulations. This exodus has hollowed out many once thriving industrial towns, leaving behind economic devastation. Manufacturing giants in sectors like automotive, electronics, and textiles have all made similar moves. The logic is simple. Lower production costs translate to higher profit margins. However, these short-term gains often come at a long-term cost. By shifting jobs overseas, companies risk losing the loyalty of American consumers and face political backlash, as demonstrated by Trump's aggressive stance. Meanwhile, other countries, particularly in Asia and Latin America, are capitalizing on this shift. They offer incentives like tax breaks and infrastructure investments to attract foreign manufacturers. For these nations, welcoming companies like John Deere boosts their economies and creates jobs. But for the US, the trend raises serious concerns about national competitiveness and economic security. Some experts argue that reversing this trend requires more than punitive tariffs. They suggest the US needs to invest in workforce development, modernize infrastructure, and offer incentives for companies to stay. However, achieving this level of reform is easier said than done in a divided political landscape. This highlights a growing pattern that threatens the future of US manufacturing. Trump's response to this pattern is more than just a tariff. It's part of a larger political strategy, tariffs as Trump's signature tool. What most people don't realize is how powerful tariffs can be in shaping economic policy. Donald Trump's use of tariffs has been one of the defining features of his political career. From the trade wars with China to tariffs on European goods, he has consistently framed these measures as a way to protect American jobs and industries. In this latest confrontation with John Deere, Trump's tariff threat is part of a broader strategy to discourage outsourcing. The rationale behind tariffs is relatively straightforward. By making imported goods more expensive, tariffs aim to incentivize companies to produce domestically. However, the real-world effects are often more complex. Industries that rely on global supply chains can face higher costs for both raw materials and finished goods. Critics argue that tariffs act as a double-edged sword. While they may protect certain jobs, they can also raise prices for consumers and provoke retaliatory actions from trade partners. During his presidency, Trump imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, arguing that the move would revive American manufacturing. These tariffs did lead to temporary job growth in some sectors. They also drove up costs for industries that depend on metal supplies, such as automotive and construction. Trump supporters maintain that these measures sent a strong message to foreign competitors, while opponents contend that they hurt US competitiveness in the long run. With his latest threat against John Deere, Trump is doubling down on his belief that tariffs are a necessary tool to combat outsourcing. By taking such a public stance, he's hoping to pressure other companies into keeping jobs on American oil. This underscores how tariffs are both an economic weapon and a political statement. But how do tariffs actually affect the industries they are supposed to protect? The real cost of tariffs. Imagine paying more for everyday goods because of a hidden tax. When tariffs are introduced, they're often portrayed as a way to protect jobs. However, the effects can ripple across the entire economy in ways that are not immediately obvious. Businesses that import goods or rely on foreign components face increased costs, and those costs are usually passed down to consumers. This is where the hidden tax of tariffs reveals itself. Take, for example, a manufacturer of farm equipment. If a tariff increases the price of imported steel, the company's production costs rise. To maintain profitability, they may need to raise prices on their products. For farmers buying machinery, this can result in higher prices for equipment they depend on to stay competitive. Higher equipment costs are not the only issue. Tariffs can also lead to supply chain disruptions. In some cases, companies may have difficulty sourcing parts if trade tensions escalate. Delays in receiving critical components can slow production, resulting in lost revenue and reduced efficiency. Additionally, retaliatory tariffs imposed by other countries can hurt US exports. Agricultural products are particularly vulnerable. For example, when China imposed tariffs on US soybeans in response to Trump's trade measures, American farmers saw demand for their crops decline sharply. It's a stark reminder that trade wars often leave multiple casualties on both sides. This creates a complex balancing act between job protection and affordability. However, not all industries feel these effects equally. Farmers are particularly vulnerable. The farmers struggle. Farmers operate in one of the most volatile industries, where a single bad season can spell financial disaster. For these agricultural producers, tariffs on essential goods like machinery can compound their existing challenges. The equipment they rely on, tractors, plows, and harvesters, is already expensive. When tariffs raise the price of these items, farmers have to make difficult decisions about whether to invest in new equipment or maintain aging machinery. Farming is highly capital-intensive, with profit margins that are often thin. Increased equipment costs can reduce those margins even further. For many farmers, maintaining older machinery is not always a viable option. Outdated equipment can be less efficient, leading to higher fuel and maintenance costs. This makes it harder for farms to compete in both domestic and international markets. Moreover, many small and mid-sized farms rely on loans to purchase new equipment. When prices rise, farmers may struggle to secure financing. Higher interest rates further complicate the issue, and the only challenge farmers face global retaliation, the trade war escalates. Here's where it gets really interesting. Other countries don't just sit back, they strike back. International trade is a delicate balancing act, and when one country imposes tariffs, others soften, retaliate. For American farmers and manufacturers, these retaliatory measures can have devastating consequences. Countries that are major trading partners, such as China, Mexico, and Canada, often respond by targeting US exports, particularly in politically sensitive industries like agriculture. During the height of Trump's trade war with China, American soybean farmers were caught in the crossfire. China imposed steep tariffs on US soybeans, significantly reducing demand. Farmers who had previously relied on Chinese markets were left scrambling to find new buyers. Some resorted to storing their crops in silos, hoping for better trade conditions in future. Mexico, a key trading partner for American agricultural products, could also retaliate if Trump's tariffs on John Deere products go into effect. This would further complicate the situation for US farmers who already face challenges from rising costs and shrinking margins. The risk of prolonged trade wars is that industries become locked in cycles of retaliation with no clear path to resolution. Experts warn that these trade disputes can destabilize entire sectors, leading to reduced investment and job losses. While tariffs may be intended to protect domestic industries, the broader economic fallout can sometimes outweigh the benefits. This could lead to a prolonged trade war with global consequences. But there's another war being fought in America's fields, a battle for labor. The foundation of American agriculture. American agriculture is built on a foundation of hard work, but much of that labor comes from an often overlooked source: immigrant workers. For decades, immigrant laborers have filled critical roles in planting, harvesting, and maintaining the farms that feed the nation. Without them, many farms would simply not function. In fact, according to the United States Department of Agriculture, over 70% of the country's agricultural labor force consists of immigrants, many of whom work under seasonal contracts. These individuals endure grueling conditions, often for low wages, to ensure that crops are harvested on time. Despite their vital contributions, these workers face increasing challenges, including stricter immigration policies and reduced access to work permits. Farm owners are feeling the pressure as well. Labor shortages have become a recurring issue, forcing farmers to either scale back production or leave crops unharvested. In industries like fruit and vegetable farming, where timing is critical, even a short delay in labor availability can result in significant financial losses. This reveals how labor policy can directly impact the nation's food security. Farmers are now looking for ways to adapt to this crisis. The rising costs of labor shortages. Imagine entire fields left unharvested due to a lack of workers. The consequences of labor shortages go beyond delayed harvests. When farmers cannot find enough workers, the cost of available labor rises due to increased demand. Many farm owners report paying significantly higher wages to attract and retain workers, further squeezing already thin profit margins. Higher labor costs are particularly devastating for small and mid-sized farms. Unlike large agribusinesses that can absorb price increases through economies of scale, smaller farms often operate on razor-thin budgets. When wages rise, these farmers may be forced to make tough decisions, either reduce production or cut corners on other essential expenses like equipment maintenance and irrigation. One farmer in California's Central Valley described the impact in stark terms. "We're bidding against each other for the same small pool of workers. It's not sustainable." Some farmers are resorting to desperate measures, including offering bonuses or temporary housing to attract workers during peak seasons. However, these stopgap solutions do little to address the underlying problem. Additionally, when farms cannot meet production targets due to labor shortages, the entire supply chain is affected. Distributors and retailers may face delays or price increases, which ultimately get passed on to consumers. This is one reason why food prices have seen fluctuations in recent years, particularly for labor-intensive crops like berries and leafy greens. This creates a dangerous feedback loop where farms lose profitability and consumers face higher prices. But technology may offer a glimmer of hope: automation and the future of work. What if robots could save American farms? With labor shortages reaching critical levels, many farmers are turning to automation as a potential solution. Advances in agricultural technology have made it possible to automate tasks that were once entirely dependent on human labor. From self-driving tractors to robotic harvesters, innovation is reshaping the way farms operate. One notable example is the development of robotic fruit picking machines. Traditionally, harvesting delicate fruits like strawberries and apples has required a skilled hand to avoid bruising or damaging the produce. However, recent technological breakthroughs have enabled machines to perform these tasks with greater precision. Farmers who have adopted these systems report improved efficiency and reduced dependency on seasonal labor. Automation also extends to planting and irrigation. Precision agriculture tools use sensors and artificial intelligence to optimize resource allocation, ensuring that crops receive the right amount of water, nutrients, and sunlight. These technologies not only reduce labor requirements, but also enhance productivity by minimizing waste and maximizing yield. However, automation is not without its challenges. The upfront costs of purchasing and maintaining advanced equipment can be prohibitive, particularly for smaller farms. Additionally, some tasks, such as livestock care and crop inspection, still require human oversight. There is also the risk that excessive reliance on automation could lead to job losses for farm workers who depend on agricultural employment. Despite these hurdles, many experts believe that automation will play a crucial role in the future of farming. As technology continues to evolve, farmers may find new ways to balance innovation with labor needs. This could revolutionize farming, but it comes with its own set of challenges. However, technology alone isn't enough. Policy reform is urgently needed. Policy reforms for a new era. Here's where it gets really interesting. Lawmakers are stepping in with bold ideas. Recognizing the severity of the labor crisis in agriculture, several policymakers have proposed reforms aimed at stabilizing the workforce. One of the most debated solutions is the expansion of work visa programs for seasonal agricultural laborers. Proponents argue that providing legal pathways for immigrant workers to enter the country would help fill critical labor gaps, while ensuring that workers receive fair treatment and protections. The Farm Worker Program Act, for example, seeks to create a pathway to citizenship for undocumented farm workers who have been employed in the sector for several years. Supporters believe that this measure would not only stabilize the labor supply, but also improve conditions for workers who currently operate in a legal grey area. Meanwhile, some states are introducing local initiatives to support farm labor. In California, the state government has allocated funds to subsidize farm worker housing and transportation, helping to address two major barriers to labor availability. Other states are experimenting with grants and tax incentives to encourage farms to invest in automation and workforce development. However, EC-makers advocate for stricter enforcement of labor laws to prevent exploitation, but remain wary of policies that might increase costs for farmers. Another area of reform focuses on education and training. Agricultural trade groups are collaborating with universities and vocational schools to develop programs that train the next generation of farm workers and agribusiness professionals. By investing in education, the industry hopes to attract more domestic workers and reduce its reliance on seasonal immigrants. These policies could reshape the future of agriculture and manufacturing in America. But what does the long-term future hold for these industries? Life after tariffs. Imagine a world where tariffs are the new normal. As the dust settles from trade conflicts and for tariff wars, the agricultural sector faces an uncertain future. While some industries have adapted to higher import costs, others continue to grapple with disruptions caused by retaliatory measures. Tariffs, once seen as temporary economic leverage, now threaten to become a permanent fixture in global trade. For American farmers, long-term tariffs could mean continuous price increases on essential goods like machinery and fertilizers. The competitive landscape is shifting as farmers in other countries benefit from more stable trade agreements and lower operating costs. This situation puts US agriculture at a disadvantage on the global stage, especially when exporting products to markets that impose counter-tariffs. One possible scenario involves bilateral agreements to resolve these trade disputes, but negotiations are slow and politically charged. Meanwhile, farmers and manufacturers are exploring ways to diversify their markets to reduce dependence on any single trade partner. Efforts to establish new export relationships in Southeast Asia and Africa are underway, offering hope for reduced exposure to retaliatory tariffs. This could permanently alter America's role in the global economy, but tariffs are only one part of the equation. Farm dynamics are also shifting. This raises serious concerns about the future of food security and farm diversity. But innovation could offer a way forward, the rise of sustainable farming. What if farming could be both profitable and sustainable? In response to economic and environmental challenges, many farmers are embracing sustainable practices that improve efficiency while reducing resource consumption. These methods include crop rotation, cover cropping, and regenerative agriculture, which focuses on rebuilding soil health and biodiversity. By adopting these practices, farmers hope to create resilient ecosystems that can withstand climate fluctuations and market pressures. Technology is also playing a crucial role in this transformation. Innovations like precision agriculture, which uses GPS and data analytics to optimize planting and irrigation, are helping farmers cut costs and improve yields. Additionally, renewable energy sources such as solar panels and biogas systems are being integrated into farm operations to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. Consumers are driving demand for sustainably produced food, creating new opportunities for farmers to differentiate their products. Certifications like organic and regenerative farming labels are gaining traction in both domestic and international markets. As more consumers prioritize sustainability, farmers who invest in these practices can access premium pricing and new revenue streams. However, the transition to sustainable farming is not without challenges. The initial costs of implementing new practices and technologies can be significant. Government programs offering financial incentives and technical support are essential to helping farmers make the switch. This could position American agriculture as a leader in global sustainability efforts. But ultimately, leadership will determine whether these changes succeed. Leadership in times of change. The future of American farming hangs on the decisions made today. Leadership, both the corporate and government levels, will be crucial in shaping the future of the agricultural and manufacturing sectors. Policymakers face the challenge of balancing short-term economic pressures with long-term sustainability goals. Without decisive action, the current trends of labor shortages, tariff conflicts, and farm consolidation could become irreversible. Federal leaders are debating comprehensive agricultural reform, including proposals to expand support for small farms, enhance labor protections, and invest in infrastructure. Some legislative investors are also pushing for stronger trade agreements to stabilize export markets and reduce the risk of retaliatory tariffs. However, political gridlock remains a major obstacle. Corporate leadership within the agricultural industry also plays a significant role. Companies like John Deere and others have the power to drive innovation by investing in new technologies and partnerships. By collaborating with farmers and research institutions, these companies can help address challenges such as labor shortages and climate resilience. And advocacy groups are amplifying the voices of farmers who feel left behind by current policies. These groups are calling for greater transparency in supply chains, fairer pricing structures, and stronger representation in policy discussions. Their efforts are critical in ensuring that the needs of small and mid-sized farms are not overlooked. Ultimately, the success of these initiatives depends on cooperation between stakeholders at every level. Farmers, policymakers, corporate leaders, and consumers must work together to build a more resilient and equitable agricultural system. This is a pivotal moment that could define America's economic future for generations. The future of American farming and trade is still being written, and your perspective matters. What are your thoughts on the strategies we've explored? Will these bold decisions safeguard American jobs, or will they bring new challenges for farmers and manufacturers? Share your opinions in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on the issues shaping our world.